Welcome to another episode of the Venari Podcast. As part of our HealthTech CEO podcast series, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome Jens Neuthauser, CEO and founder of Cranus Health. Good to see you again, Jens. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Christian. Good to be here.
Brilliant. So, first of all, to kind of give us some context, Jens, I know you were, pretty successful in the corporate world, both at McKinsey and Palantir. What possessed you to start your own company?
Yeah, actually, it's a good question. I've been wanting to start my own company for a while, for a long while actually. Like I remember still my first interviews at McKinsey when I told the partners, look, I'm here to experience, to learn, to acquire some more skills, but eventually I will leave the firm to start my own business. So this has been part of me for a long time. I founded my first company during university times as well. So I was just waiting for the right time and the right people to do this with, which all came together with Cranus Health 3 years ago.
Oh, fantastic. So why Cranus Health? What does the company do?
So in essence, we are a digital health company, and we really fill the white spot that existed or still exists in both the US as well as in Europe, and really in digital urology. So the whole idea when I wanted to start a company, I was already working in the pharma space for more than a decade. And what I saw is, we still haven't been leveraging technology as much in healthcare as we did in other industries like travel. There are many industries where we've put these tools to great use, and we haven't done so far in healthcare, which, ultimately comes at the expense of patients' lives. So that's what I wanted to do. And we singled in on the area of urology, which encompasses both men and women, effectively, several diseases where I think it's a very large area of healthcare, which with diseases of high prevalence and the opportunity to do something about these diseases with digital tools. So I think this combination, then settled me on urology.
But so in terms of the urology space within digital health, I mean, how kind of saturated is that market? I mean, what separates you from your competitors essentially?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think when you think of digital health or virtual therapies, which is essentially what we do, the mental health space is quite crowded. You have like a lot of companies there, both in Europe as well as in the US, great companies doing good things. Mm-hmm. That was kind of the first wave. So we have already a lot in the mental health space. There's also quite a lot in the primary care and MSK space.
Yeah.
Similarly, when we started, we saw a lot of successful femtech companies. But at the beginning, that's where we started. Actually, originally, we started quite heavily on the men's health side. There wasn't really anything in our space. So that's why I think it's great to innovate in this space to benefit the patients. Meanwhile, we also included women. For example, incontinence is a disease area that affects way more women than men. But originally, when we started out, we quite closely looked at the men's health space.
Yeah. Okay. So what was the first products that you kind of came out with then when you first started?
Yeah. So the first product was actually a root cause oriented treatment for erectile dysfunction. Mm-hmm. Erectile dysfunction essentially is a disease that affects millions and millions of men, both in many Western countries. And so far, there's basically Viagra, I guess, is a brand that almost everyone on the planet knows, right? It's interesting, right? So that drug is, functioning, but it's only a symptomatic treatment with several side effects. So when you look actually what we did in the guidelines, in the medical guidelines, they really want a root cause oriented treatment, a lifestyle change, because ultimately erectile dysfunction is a vascular disease for most people, right? So you need to introduce lifestyle changes. You need to do certain physiotherapeutic exercise as well as mental health. And that was something that the medical guidelines already postulate they want this, but the doctors simply lack the time to actually do it. And that's where we started. It's still one of our, most important therapies. But since then, we expanded really all the way into prostate cancer, incontinence, BPH, so prostate enlargement, variety of urology diseases.
Yeah. And just to kind of clear this up for me, really, and maybe some of the listeners, but so do you sell directly then into the healthcare space in general, as in kind of providers, health systems, and primary care? Or is there a B2C element as well in certain places? Or
I mean, ultimately, of course, the user are patients, right? So that is a B2C component, but we don't believe in selling B2C products. So in the end, what we do, I always say we're a modern pharma company, right? So we develop new kind of therapies. Yep. We conduct clinical research, and we conduct randomized controlled trials, basically the gold standard in medical evidence, to prove that these therapies are effective in treating patients. And then the way we sell, or we basically go to the market, is we work with health insurances to reimburse our products. So we have more than 30 million men under full coverage in Germany. We recently expanded to France, which will add another 20 million people under coverage. And then we basically go out to the doctors, right? So we have a sales force, like most pharma companies would have, that visits, in our case, urologists all over the country, to educate them about the therapy, tell them the benefits. And then the way it works, the doctor prescribes the product, the patients then get reimbursed through health insurance. Right?
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you may have touched on this before, but how long have you guys been around?
Yeah. So we've been around for 3 years, still quite a young company there, but I think quite a strong track record in those 3 years. We've grown to 80 people roughly in our offices in Berlin, Munich, and Paris. And recently we also set foot in New York towards the US, which is of course a very important market in our expansion roadmap. And we've raised close to $20 million in venture capital. So also quite well funded and looking to accelerate.
Fantastic. Yeah, because I was going to say, what does the next kind of 3 years look like for you? I mean, obviously the US is a big part of that strategy, but what else do you kind of see as well, or maybe expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, I think it's always much harder to tell you what the next 3 years are. If you would have asked me 3 years ago where you're gonna be, I would have probably not gonna tell, I would have not imagined how far we can get. So I think the next 3 years, we're gonna see a lot of growth in our therapy portfolio. So we expanding. We build now a very, compliant platform on which all our products run. So we've been able to accelerate the medical development quite a bit. So we really believe in having a wide portfolio of therapies within urology to address a variety of diseases, and of course expand into new markets. So there, on the one hand side, we really believe in a harmonized European framework for digital health, which there's already a task force, so this is going to come soon. And then the US. So that's both. In 3 years, we hope to be definitely in the US and also quite present in Europe.
And final question really from my side, which is just, now you said you obviously founded a company at university as well, and this isn't clearly your first venture, but do you have any advice for future founders about pitfalls or challenges that you may have come across and how you've overcome them?
Well, I think if you want to found something in healthcare, the great upside is you can attract amazing talent with very strong mission and drive. We've been able to get people really from the best companies in the world to work at our startup early on, even at a time when we weren't able to afford like really high salaries, which has changed over time. But that's a big upside. The big thing you really need to be aware of is, of course, you need to break through a lot of regulations. And that takes usually longer than you think, but it's very rewarding if you get to do it. I think that's a bit healthcare specific, but that's definitely one advice is like, how do you say, plan for the best and prepare for the worst. I think both are important.
100%. And thank you so much for joining us, Jens. It's been lovely to find out a bit more about, Cranus Health and you and your story, but, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Christian. It was a great time.